taking care of yourself when you're in a down moment, taking care of yourself when you may be experiencing heartbreak, taking care of yourself when you lose something, and it doesn't have to be a person. It could be a job that you really wanted. I know how that feels. It could be a friendship that you feel like that relationship ended. It could be a strained relationship with a family member. It doesn't even have to be like between you and another person, because when you really think about life, everything is a relationship. Like, we relate to concepts, we relate to ideas, and we're in relation to everything in the universe. And I'm grateful to have learned that this year by diving into some really deep work.
Let's link up with Krysta on the FYX. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
Hey there, FYX listeners. Welcome back to our latest episode of the FYX podcast. I'm your host, Krysta Huber, and I've got a solo episode for you guys this week. Before I get into it, a couple of programming notes as we head into the holiday season. Next week is Thanksgiving, so I will not have a show because Thanksgiving is the day that the episode would normally drop. And I want you guys to eat all the eats, have a good time, be present in the moment, enjoy the chance to spend some time decompressing, relaxing with family, with friends, however you choose to spend the holiday. And remember, it's just one day. So don't let it define you in terms of your relationship with food. Maybe it's a learning opportunity, but if you've been on a journey of trying to see progress this year, last year, the year before that, know that it's a chance to maybe prove yourself right, that you have improved your relationship with food and that you can find that balance, that you will be able to enjoy holidays like that without second guessing your choices or feeling guilty about it for the next day. Or maybe it's also your learning opportunity to say, hey, 2025 is my year. I'm raising my hand. Maybe you should even raise your hand before 2025 hits and take advantage of our Black Friday promo here at the Fitness Fix. But, just saying. But with that, I'm going to transition this episode into something really different. This has been on my heart. I shouldn't say really different, actually. A decision that I've changed my mind on. And I'm transitioning, I should say, to something different because I'm not going to talk about fitness and nutrition. I'm going to talk about relationships in the rest of this podcast episode. And it's been a while since I've really navigated this topic because it's been a while since I've been in a serious relationship. And I always told myself that after going through the experience that I did of choosing to walk away from an engagement, change the course of that relationship of the rest of my life, change my career path, start the Fitness Fix, move. If you don't know that story, I've shared it in other podcast episodes. But in going through that, and going through the pain of deleting photos, especially like engagement photos, let alone the years of that relationship as it progressed on social media, I always promised myself that I wouldn't put someone else on social media until I knew like they were the person. And while I haven't done that, I have hinted at being in a relationship in some episodes, in some of my Reels content, most of the time in like a poking fun kind of way. And I also shared that person wasn't on social media either. And in some aspects that made it a lot easier. But I am now recently navigating a breakup from that relationship. And I never really expected to come back to the breakup piece in a public way because I feel like everything I got out of that from the last relationship, like all of it, still holds true in terms of how to take care of yourself. And I'll unpack what I mean by that in the rest of this episode. But I just always kind of thought like this wouldn't necessarily be a topic that I would visit again until I was like, this is my person. And here's everything I've learned getting to this moment about myself, why this is the right relationship for me. And I actually realized that I would be missing out on a really huge opportunity to be authentically vulnerable, because I pride myself on that, and really take you guys along on my journey. I would be skipping the like huge messy middle, right? And in thinking about that, I realized that that's a whole lot like skipping all the details behind a client's transformation and only showing the transformation photos. Cause it's like you're only showing the good parts, right? Or you're showing like technically on the left-hand side, the part the person liked the least. And then on the right-hand side, the part that the person liked the most. And when I reflect on what it means to coach clients inside of the Fitness Fix, what our brand stands for, in talking about doing it all and doing it better, I'd be leaving out a huge chunk if I didn't talk about the messy parts, if I didn't talk about the uncomfortable parts. And not getting into anything super personal here out of respect for the other person. But I do know that I'm not alone in being somebody who wants to portray a certain attitude and perspective on the outside, especially when you may not feel that way on the inside. I feel an immense pressure to really show up as my best self on social media because I consider myself to be such a positive person. I pride myself off of wanting to be the light and wanting to keep it real and wanting to keep it honest and taking a no BS approach to fitness and nutrition. So again, if we're going to take a no BS approach, I thought to myself, it's kind of wrong. And yes, I'm allowed to have personal things that I keep just to myself, and I will, but it's kind of wrong if I don't let you in on this. And the angle that I'm going to take is more around taking care of yourself when you're in a down moment, taking care of yourself when you may be experiencing heartbreak, taking care of yourself when you lose something, and it doesn't have to be a person. It could be a job that you really wanted. I know how that feels. It could be a friendship that you feel like that relationship ended. Could be a strained relationship with a family member. It doesn't even have to be like between you and another person, because when you really think about life, everything is a relationship. Like we relate to concepts, we relate to ideas, and we're in relation to everything in the universe. And I'm grateful to have learned that this year by diving into some really deep work with self-development that I've shared very openly on this podcast. I even invited my coach, Oliver, on. If you didn't have a chance to listen to the episode we did in the spring, giving him full credit for showing me that that's not my original idea, that everything is a matter of being in relation to the rest of the world, to the rest of our reality. I'll link that down in the show notes because it was such a great episode and has had a profound impact on who I am and how I've grown in the last 12 months in particular. And I actually did start working with him nearly exactly 12 months ago from when I'm recording this. So it's a pretty full circle moment. Now, navigating anything hard and navigating anything challenging, I realize I have this unique opportunity to remind myself of some of the missteps that I made along the way the last time I found myself in this position. And like I said, the last time I found myself in this position, I was making a very big decision to walk away from a relationship that I thought would be my forever relationship. And there were a lot of aspects about my recent relationship that I thought were moving in that direction too. And I have had the last couple of weeks and will continue to face the feelings of mourning what could have been and the vision of the life I thought that I could be building with this person, and just the loss of that aspect of the relationship, but also grappling with like why it didn't work and what about it wouldn't work for the two of us, and trying to figure out what that says about me, what I can learn about myself inside of that process. And I would just caution anybody that if you're someone who likes to self-reflect and really likes coaching and really likes the self-development aspect, prides yourself on having a lot of self-awareness, don't be so quick to pick yourself apart. That's my first tip. If we're going to make this episode more about like tips of how to take care of yourself. When I look back on 2020 Krysta, I was really quick to tear myself apart, put a lot of blame on myself for why the relationship wasn't the one. And as almost like a punishment to myself, I stopped doing the things that I knew would make me feel better. I felt so sad. I felt really sorry for myself. And I just wanted to curl up in a ball and not face it. And that experience prepared me for the one I'm going through right now. And in showing up and sitting down and hitting play and on this episode, my biggest hope for it is that if anybody else out there experiences something like this, I can then pay it forward again. And when I talk about my own transformation, my own relationship to macros, changes to the scale, I've gone through periods where I've been my leanest weight and quote unquote only needed to lose 20 pounds to get there, to then within a matter of like 10 months, gaining like 45 pounds. Lost another 20 again this year, have fluctuated through the summer, getting back into a relationship. Just naturally, there's more going out to eat, some drinks, social things, spending time with the person that maybe puts you out of your usual routine that's really easy to be in when you are single, and just frankly focusing on yourself, just focusing on me and being. So I'm really proud to be able to say that because I hit a low in 2020, and because I understand what decisions, or should I really say lack of decision making around choosing not to continue my fitness routine, choosing not to track my food in this time of heartbreak, choosing not to prioritize getting outside and taking walks. I'll give myself the grace that it was a very difficult time. I'll also give myself the grace that it was complicated in that this was in the like early stages of COVID when we were in a lockdown mode and nobody kind of knew what was going on. But I started to use that as like the story to tell myself of like why it was twice as okay for me to kind of say, screw it. Who cares about my macros? Like, I don't know what I want to do with my future. I don't know what I want to do career-wise. I have no idea if I'm going to stay like in New Jersey or if I'm potentially going to move. Like, there were just so many things that were up in the air. And I started to tell myself, for that reason, because there was so much uncertainty, I should feel okay with not feeling a desire to prioritize my health. And I so firmly stand in this statement that if there is one thing I could go back and tell myself to do differently, it would be that. Like, actually, girl, double down on the things you can control. Double down on tracking your food, because you feel good when you have structure. You feel good when you stick to a plan. And I've recognized, even in the last couple of weeks of having clients go through breakups and being open and vulnerable and sharing it with me, a lot of in their situations, them choosing to walk away from the relationship. And I felt really proud to be able to support them, to be empowered to make that decision. But then coming in to remind them that it's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel sad about what could have been. But that doesn't mean that that automatically turns into like, well, let me potentially just like have ice cream every single night. Hey, if it fits your macros and you want it, go for it. But really ask yourself, can I hold me to a higher standard? And I'm telling myself this, and I'm asking myself these questions right now, because I now have this unique opportunity, and I truly do believe that, to rewrite the story of how I handle this heartbreak versus how I handled the one in 2020. And I don't say this from a place of toxic positivity. I say this from a place of a lot of growth, that in so many ways, it's a good thing that I had that experience back in 2020. One, because it made me so clear about what I want. And two, because now what I'm experiencing, while I am sad and while I am confused and while I am frustrated, I have 100% confidence that I can handle it. And I also am recording this podcast in a way that's like a little bit therapeutic. So thank you for indulging me, to just show that like we don't have to keep it all together all the time. I feel pressure with that, with social media. And again, with wanting to be this upbeat coach, wanting to be this positive light of like, I really should just always have it together all the time. And when I'm hurting behind the scenes and I want the space to just like do nothing, how do I find the balance of that with continuing to be there for my community, both my clients and those of you who interact with me on Instagram, because I take that responsibility super seriously. But the more I've sat and thought about this over the last 2 weeks, if I want to operate in integrity, and if I really do believe that I'm taking that responsibility seriously, it's just sharing the emotional side. I can, again, still keep things to myself about like the nuances of what happened. And I don't feel any sort of obligation to necessarily share that. And I don't even feel an obligation to share the feelings of sadness right now, but I do feel a sense of integrity, of being in alignment with the person that I am and the way that I choose to show up and the principles and values that I live by, that I'm okay with showing a little bit of the hurt. And I don't actually need to act like everything's so great all of the time. What I've also realized in paying attention to what makes me happy and paying attention to what makes me feel better in these down moments is I love what I do. And that's my next tip. When you think about the things that are going to make you feel good, it doesn't solely have to be like movement or food choices. It can be spending time with people that you do really care about who really support you. It can also be pouring into the hobbies that you have that don't necessarily have to be physical, or in my case, it can be pouring into my business. The one bright spot from the few days where I was really feeling it was having the chance to talk to clients, going through the process of doing our check-ins, reading clients' feedbacks about how their weeks were, and just sitting there and like talking through with them, like, okay, here's my recommendation for this. This is what I think about your macros. And I kind of had this like out of body sort of experience where I was like observing myself doing that. And then I played back a few of the recordings to just really reinforce this. But it reminded me, like, I am so confident in my ability to coach. And I get so much satisfaction because I had clients like write things that reminded me of who I am and why I do what I do. And they didn't even, and I'll say you, because I know some of you guys are listening to this, you didn't even know that I was going through it. So you have no idea how much I appreciate you showing up, doing your check-in, sending me messages and asking me questions about nutrition. Because yeah, objectively, it took my mind off of what I was dealing with in my personal life. But more importantly, it just poured me right back into my purpose and just reminded me of how much satisfaction I get off of this and how I feel that the Fitness Fix has barely scratched the surface on what it will continue to be and where we will continue to go. And it's okay to show like all the different sides of that, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? And the next thing that I'll say is the last couple of weeks have reminded me about the power of friendships and just family relationships, but relationships, I should say, relationships outside of the romantic ones. I knew that I had several strong friendships, but when I went through the experience that I did 4 years ago, a lot of my friendships changed. A lot of those friendships ended. A lot of them I chose to end. A lot of them just kind of faded out, like for reasons of moving. And over the last few years, I've done two things. One, get really clear on like who I actually want to maintain friendships with. But two, I've also made a lot of new friends. And going through what I've been experiencing for the last few weeks has just shown me how deep those friendships are, despite them not having been technically as long. Friendships that I've made in the last 3 years versus friendships that I left behind that were like 25 plus years long that I felt really sad about losing. But I feel so grateful that it's actually allowed me to make the space in my life to have even better friendships with other people who, had I not gone through hard things, had I not made difficult decisions, had I not faced uncertainties in my life, are people that I would have never met. So lean into your friendships. And the other big one is don't be afraid to like shake shit up, like change your environment. I had a few people messaging me asking me if I moved, and the answer is yes. And I'm excited because I am going to be starting a new chapter for myself in New York. And I'll still be back and forth to New Jersey. So, like, I say I moved, but I kind of didn't. But we'll just say, like, the majority of my time I envision, for at least right now, spending in New York. And I'm really excited about that because being in a different space, it can help you step outside of your comfort zone, but it can also help you just feel like you have like a really fresh start. I saw on a therapist's Instagram page the other day, she was talking about going through a breakup, and she's actually going to come on the show because she's a relationship coach. And I think it'll be really cool about how there's like a lot of science and psychology behind like when you go through a big life event, that moving or traveling, changing your environment, doing something different, like you could even like cut your hair. Like there's the joke that a lot of girls go through a breakup and they get bangs. I'm not planning on getting bangs, but maybe I'll be a little blonder in the next 2 weeks because we're due for a refresh. That it's actually really good for you because it can just help you kind of like signify a new chapter. And as a business owner, I underscore this twice as much because I've already noticed, even in just like a few days of being in New York and talking to different people, walking different places, like having different routines, going to a different coffee shop, it just like has gotten a lot of creative juices flowing for me and reminds me of like all the ideas that I have inside me that I haven't even gotten the chance to explore yet. And it makes you just like feel very appreciative for the fact that like you can always start fresh. Because if you hear me say that and you're like, well, I have my routine and I'm not going through a heartbreak and I'm in a serious relationship, I'm married, like this doesn't relate to me necessarily. It doesn't matter. You may go through something hard. Not may, you will. I don't wish it upon you, but something is going to come your way that may stop you in your tracks, may cause you to lose some momentum along your nutrition journey, along your fat loss goals. And if you feel stuck because you feel like you're feeling sad about something and you can't move past it, change it up. And that could be as simple as you driving a slightly different route to work that day, ordering something different at a coffee shop, going to a new coffee shop, changing the way you interact with people. Like maybe you're a little bit more introverted and you have a tendency to just like, if you're, you know, out and about, like you wouldn't say hi to a stranger, make eye contact with them, try doing it. That connection, even if it's momentary, can help you feel seen and so much better. And you also have no idea if the person that you're making that eye contact with, like you have no idea what that's doing for them. And it could be doing something huge for them too. So I wanted to find the right balance in recording this episode of like, there's so much positivity, there's so much opportunity. I see so many bright spots ahead, but I also wanted to acknowledge that if you are out there and you're going through something that you feel like is kind of like you're quietly going through something, or you're quietly going through something behind the scenes, my DMs are always open to talk to you about it. I shared this story again, talking about a client who went through a breakup. I put this on my stories the other day and I really stand by this. Went through a breakup, moved. She had some things change with her jobs and she works multiple jobs. So there's already a lot of moving parts and a lot going on. And she's had every reason to very logically explain away like, hey, like I'm not going to see progress on the scale right now. I'm moving, I'm dealing with these personal things. So like I'll be okay with maintenance or maybe even gaining a few pounds. But she's shown up for herself and messages me every day to tell me how happy she is because she actually feels like now that she's made these changes and made these decisions that fat loss feels easier than ever. And for me, that's such a fuck yeah moment because I'm like, this is what it's all about. This is why fat loss is just the byproduct of what we do inside of the Fitness Fix. It's so much deeper than that. It's about keeping promises to yourself. It's about showing up for yourself. Even if you can't give 100%, and even if you can't do it every day, it's raising your standard and reminding yourself that, okay, maybe you can only give 60%, but that 60% is 10% better than the 60% that you would have given a year ago or 4 years ago, like in my case, when I had a similar past experience. And we're just going to keep going with that. And I love standing behind that. And I love the fact that I've been able to have these own personal experiences, grow through them, evolve with them, that it's just constantly brought me back to my mission of why I do what I do. And I'm excited to be what I call that like lighthouse leadership type position, where moving through the end of this year, moving into 2025, committing to my own fat loss goals, holding myself accountable, and working with support from my coaches to be able to maintain the consistency of my workout routine, because I know that those are things that will 100% make me feel good, but also not judging myself if it's not going to be perfect. Finding the time to say, hey, I'll do a 20-minute workout if I can't get in the hour, but actually doing it anyway and making it happen, and making time for fun, making time for feeling the tougher emotions, and being with myself instead of avoiding some of the ways that I feel. And I encourage you to do the same. I encourage you to lean into your relationships. I encourage you to move your body, to shake things out, because all of that can make you feel really, really good. So with that, I'll miss you guys next week. We will be back in December, which, by the way, December is 4 years of the FYX podcast, which is pretty freaking awesome. So we'll have some fun things lined up, some great guests, some more solo episodes. And if you want to talk Black Friday, shoot me a DM over at the Krysta Huber. I got some good specials going on that we only do once a year. We're going to throw in an additional free month of coaching. So reach out to me, even if it's just to have the conversation. You don't have to commit right away on that call. Let's just chat. See if you're a fit for the FYX. If anything in this episode resonated with you, you can bet that you're a fit for this community, and I'd be honored to work with you. So from wherever you're listening from, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will catch you guys in 2 weeks.